Dorothy had been busy all day cleaning the house, ironing her husband's shirts, and then tending to her greenhouse. She adored her homegrown vegetables and cared for them deeply. After lunch, she set about preparing her husband's favorite dish, schnitzel made from fresh veal stuffed with cheese and ham, coated in breadcrumbs. For dessert, she decided on a delicate raspberry souffle. Everything turned out delicious, and now she could tidy herself up a bit. Dorothy always made an effort to look good. She didn't allow herself to wander around the house untidily, without her hair done and a light touch of makeup. That's how her mother-in-law had taught her back when she was young. She believed in keeping her husband happy, giving him warmth and tenderness, and only positive emotions, so he wouldn't look at other women. After taking a shower, she sat in front of the mirror, styled her hair into soft curls, applied a bit of blush and lip gloss, put on a form-fitting suit, and suddenly we see not a tired housewife, but a lovely young woman. Lately, their relationship had been quite strange. Philip often got angry and nervous for any reason or no reason at all, and Dorothy wanted to please him, to lighten the mood even just a little. At exactly 7 o'clock in the evening, her husband arrived, walked into the house, dropped his briefcase in the hallway, and headed to the kitchen. There, he found a beautifully set table and a chilled bottle of wine waiting for him. Dorothy rushed to hug him. "Hey, my dear. How are you? Tired? Well, I decided to spoil you tonight. I've cooked your favorite dinner. Wash your hands and come to the table. Everything's ready." Philip reluctantly kissed his wife and frowned, as if he hadn't been pleased by the surprise at all. And Dorothy felt hurt. She had been looking forward to this. She had tried so hard. They sat down to eat, her husband lethargically chewing the schnitzel, drinking wine, and grumbling. "What kind of celebration is this? Things couldn't be worse. Sales are down. Soon we'll be in the red. I'm furious. It's only fun for you." He slammed a folder of reports and graphs onto the table, and Dorothy looked at them. Yes, things were indeed going very badly. How did this happen? Just 6 months ago, everything was fine. I managed everything myself and kept an eye on the purchases. Why did you refuse our trusted supplier? His materials are top-notch, and he hasn't raised prices like everyone else. Look, it all started from that moment. Philip got angry and shouted, "So, you're saying I'm a bad manager and can't run the garment factory without you? Thanks a lot for your support." Dorothy was puzzled. What does that have to do with me? I'm just saying what I see. Why are you getting worked up over nothing again? I'm tired of all this too. You insisted I stay home. I listen to you. I wait for you, cook for you, miss you, and then you come home and lash out at me. Why? What's happening to you, Philip? I can see how you've changed. You even turn away from me at night, saying you are tired or something. You're away on business even on weekends. Maybe you've found another woman. Dorothy stared into her husband's eyes, thinking he would joke as usual, telling her not to make things up, that he had no one else. But what happened next shocked Dorothy to the core. Philip downed his wine, jumped up from his chair, and headed towards her, his fists clenched. He shouted, "Do you want the truth? Then listen up. Yes, I have a lover, and I truly love her, not you. I'm sick of you, got it? Being with you in bed disgusts me. All you talk about is food and your plants. Boring. You're inadequate. Barren. Can't even get pregnant. We're getting divorced. Especially since my own child will soon be born. I don't need you anymore. So pack your things and get out." Dorothy was stunned. She couldn't believe what was happening. "Philip, what are you talking about? Snap out of it. Calm down. This is our home. Where would I go? We've been together for so many years, and you want to throw it all away. And we can still have children. I believe. We just did all those tests recently. Have you forgotten?" But he didn't listen. He kept going. "I don't care about the tests. I'm going to be a father soon anyway. I'm starting a new and happy life. Forget about the house. I'll take it from you. It's in my name. And those bank accounts, they're going to be blocked now. Live however you want after that." I said, "Leave immediately. I don't need your schnitzel and chicken. I can eat them in a restaurant. I need passion, excitement. Can you even provide that? You've always been such a bore. Too goody two-shoes. Why did I even marry you? I wasted so many years." Dorothy cried as she packed her things into a suitcase and reluctantly left, taking only her documents and essentials. She didn't have much money in her wallet, so she checked into a cheap hotel. As for what to do next, she had no idea. She hoped Philip would calm down and they could talk things out. She collapsed onto the bed in the hotel room, crying loudly, reminiscing about her life. Dorothy was the late and much-loved child of a respected academic family. Her parents devoted their lives to science and only decided to become parents closer to their 40s. So, they adored their only daughter. They had their own apartment right in the city center. Dorothy grew up in love and affection, excelled in her studies, and her parents had a large library, instilling in Dorothy a love for the finer things from childhood. She had no trouble getting into university, never having lived in dormitories, always at home. She had only one friend, Margaret, who came from a troubled family, living in dorms and envying Dorothy. "You're so lucky, friend. You've been living the life of luxury since childhood. I bet your dad has already lined up a position for you at the university. You don't need money. Just live and be happy. Not like me. My dad used to beat me and my mom constantly. We never had enough money to live, and I only got into university because I spent a night with the old director. It's not life. It's just surviving. But that's okay. I'll go work, find myself a rich fiancé, and live like a queen too." The girls were completely different. Dorothy was dreamy, timid, and well-mannered, while Margaret was cunning and fearless. Yet, they somehow remained friends. Sometimes Dorothy would bring her friend home. Although her parents didn't quite approve, Margaret behaved quite audaciously, often measuring Dorothy's things and asking for them. After Margaret left, her mother would scold her daughter. "You shouldn't be friends with her, dear. She might even snatch away your fiancé. Can't you see how envious she is of you?" But naive Dorothy would argue back, "Well, yes, Margaret isn't exactly taught the rules of good manners. I agree. But that's because she had a tough childhood. You know, it's not her fault. Besides, my friend isn't bad at all." After receiving her diploma, Dorothy hurried home, knowing her parents were eagerly awaiting her. Surely they had invited guests. They needed to celebrate such an event. But when she saw an ambulance crew outside her building, she felt something was wrong. And indeed, her premonition didn't deceive her. They were carrying her mother out on a stretcher, unconscious. Her father ran after them, lamenting, "Oh, my dear daughter, we're in trouble. Cheryl has fallen ill. We were waiting for you." She was standing in the kitchen making salad, and then she collapsed. I was so scared. I tried everything to revive her. Lord, I just hope she stays alive. I can't live without her. We've been together our whole lives. But the miracle didn't happen. And a week later in the ICU, Dorothy's mom passed away, unable to survive the stroke. Dorothy instantly matured. Her father was completely out of it, swaying back and forth, talking to Cheryl as if she were alive. It was at this difficult time that their longtime acquaintances Philip's parents came to the family's aid. It was Gloria and Brian who helped Dorothy organize the funeral and the memorial service. Their son Philip was also there. He tried to support Dorothy as a friend, and they talked a lot. After the funeral, Philip's father offered Dorothy a job. "You're the head of your family now. Your father is in bad shape. Come work at our garment factory. It's a family business, and Philip is already there. He'll show you the ropes, get you up to speed. When you are busy with work, It'll be easier for you to cope with your grief." Dorothy agreed. She was so lost at the time, not knowing how to go on. She worked in her field as a procurement manager. At first, she was shy and awkward, but she soon settled in. Philip was already a senior craftsman, also involved in his father's work. It was his parents who suggested he marry Dorothy. "Son, take a good look at Dorothy. She's a fine girl, modest, well-mannered, from a decent family. She would make a wonderful wife for you. We're sure of it." So the couple started dating, and then they got married. They lived quite well. Philip was tender, never shouted, and appreciated his wife's help. Dorothy's father survived her mother by only 3 years and quietly followed his beloved Cheryl. Once again, Dorothy mourned the loss of a close loved one. After her father's death, it was her husband who persuaded her to sell the family apartment and buy a large mansion. He assured her it was the right decision, as they would eventually have children and would need a bigger space. Years went by, but the desired pregnancy did not come. The woman was deeply saddened, underwent various examinations, but doctors found no significant abnormalities or pathologies in her. They insisted that her husband also undergo the necessary tests. Philip didn't want to hear about it. He blamed his wife for infertility, believing the problem lay solely with her while he was perfectly fine. Only recently did Dorothy finally persuade him to take the tests, but the results were not yet ready. Now Philip was running the factory independently, while Dorothy was a homemaker, a role her husband insisted upon. Although before, his wife helped him, gave advice, especially on material procurement, and showed him how to manage all the finances efficiently. Like in any childless marriage, the relationship between the spouses gradually worsened. But Dorothy never expected that Philip had been cheating on her for a long time and was planning to divorce her, leaving her with nothing. The woman was emotionally shattered and decided to call her friend. "Margaret, I'm at the hotel. Please come. My whole life is falling apart, and I don't know what to do." Her friend immediately responded, "All right, dear. Just don't panic. I'm coming. Hang in there. Don't cry. Together we'll figure something out." And there they were, having tea, while Dorothy recounted what happened yesterday. "Margaret, how could Philip do this? He's been cheating on me for a year. Can you believe the nerve of some people to snatch a man away from his family like that? Philip has completely lost his mind. He blocked our cards and our savings, and now I'm left with nothing. He's intent on stripping me of everything. He says that this idiot of his will soon give birth to his child. I'm so hurt, Margaret. We've lived together for so many years. I've done everything for him, and he's tossing me out of his life like some useless old thing. What should I do? I just want to give up." Margaret sympathized with her friend and shook her head. "Your Philip is a real traitor. I never expected this from him. Don't cry. It's pointless. You can't give up. You have to fight for your rights. Let's find you a good lawyer. I know one who's excellent, specializes in family matters and property division. Just prepare all the documents, and I'll give him a call to set up a meeting." Dorothy sniffled. "Thank you, Margaret. That's a good idea. It's just that the lawyer's services are quite expensive. And where will I get that kind of money?" Her friend immediately pulled out her wallet and handed her a bundle of bills. "Here, take this. You can pay me back later. I won't leave you in trouble. We'll get through this together. What rightfully belongs to you will be yours. So gear up for the fight and believe that everything will work out. And I'll always support you." Dorothy hugged her friend and whispered, "Thank you, Margaret. You're the best friend in the world. What would I do without you? Maybe you're right. There's no need to despair. Perhaps things will still get better." The next day, Dorothy met with her lawyer. He was a very serious man, leaving a pleasant impression. He carefully listened to everything, took copies of the documents for review, and promised to take on her case. Despite the newfound hope for Dorothy, she needed to start looking for a job now. Apparently, Philip wasn't going to change his mind, so she needed to learn to survive on her own. Her husband tormented her with phone calls, threatening that she wouldn't fare well in court, basically trying to break her spirit in any way he could. Dorothy's state of mind was terrible. She could only rely on her lawyer's help as she was incapable of defending her rights on her own. Margaret called her constantly, offering support, and Dorothy was very grateful to her. But if only she knew what was really going on. Meanwhile, Dorothy's lawyer, Jordan, was diligently working. He paced around his office, describing how he would humiliate Philip's ex-wife in court. He gestured energetically as he explained, "I've come up with a brilliant strategy. Listen, Dorothy trusts me implicitly right now. She's given me copies of all her documents and claims that, at your direction, she sold her parents' apartment and invested the money in buying the mansion where you both lived. Therefore, she believes it should be split equally. That much is true and confirmed. However, we'll prove that you contributed the other half of the money. Secondly, the renovations and furniture purchases were also funded by you, meaning the house largely belongs to you. But that's not all. I've pulled some strings and bribed the right witnesses. We'll easily prove that your ex-wife hasn't worked anywhere for 5 years and lives entirely off your finances. Furthermore, she leads a lavish lifestyle, frequently drinks, and you spend a fortune on her clinic treatments. I also have a good relationship with the judge. He owes me a favor, so you could say we've already won this case. And as for Margaret, don't worry. I've arranged everything so that no one will suspect a thing, and everyone will sympathize with you." Philip was overjoyed. Everything was turning out even better than he had imagined. Sitting in the chair next to him, Margaret boasted, "Wait a minute. Who came up with all of this in the first place? My poor friend called me to complain and ask for my help. And what did I do? I helped her, as expected. She trusts me implicitly. After all, she's been a naive fool since childhood. And she doesn't even suspect that I'm the very woman Philip cheated on her with. It's simply magnificent. The main thing is for our conspiracy not to be exposed before the trial, and then I'll finally be happy with Philip. After all, our little one is due soon. What can that childless fool give him anyway?" In turn, Emily pretended to be diligently working, going through some documents for the 100th time, while secretly marveling at Jordan's cunning. He used to be her idol. She dreamed of learning from his experience and mastering the art of winning legal cases flawlessly. But now, watching the lawyer shamelessly lie to his client, knowing full well that he would betray her and leave her penniless, Emily was deeply disappointed in her mentor. Since childhood, she couldn't stand deceitfulness, always trying to side with those unfairly wronged and seek justice, which is precisely why she chose this profession. However, it seemed she would have to learn to lie, and she couldn't bring herself to do that. Emily waited until everyone dispersed, discreetly noted Dorothy's contacts, and decided to tell her the whole truth. She knew that she would likely lose her job after this. She was outraged by Philip's audacity and Jordan's confidence in getting away with it. They agreed to meet Dorothy at the hotel where she was staying. There was a decent cafe there, and it was relatively quiet, so they could talk about everything calmly. Dorothy went to the meeting in complete bewilderment. What did this Emily want from her? The woman believed in Jordan and hoped precisely for his experience and professionalism. What important information could this girl possibly have for her? Emily was determined and got straight to the point. "Hello, Dorothy. I work with Jordan. We share an office. Today I witnessed his meeting with your husband, and it deeply upset me. Jordan doesn't intend to defend your rights. Quite the opposite. Moreover, your husband paid him much more than you did. So, you'll lose the case, and you'll be left with nothing. And your friend, whom you entrusted with your sorrow, is actually your husband's mistress. I understand that this truth probably shocked you, but I couldn't not tell you. It's unfair, They're all against you. Dorothy couldn't utter a word from shock. Wait. Stop. Is this some kind of joke? I don't believe it. This just can't be. Margaret couldn't do this. We've been friends since childhood. I've done so much good for her. She couldn't betray me like this. Margaret herself found me a lawyer and gave me the money for him. And then Dorothy's mobile phone rang. And she spoke absent-mindedly. Yes, my husband and I got tested. What? What did you say? That's news. Are you sure? You double-checked. Can you send me the results by email? Thank you so much. She ended the phone call and suddenly burst into hysterical laughter, tears streaming down her face. Emily realized it was a severe mental breakdown, so she didn't even try to calm her, just splashed water from a glass on her face. And it helped. Dorothy seemed to come to her senses, and Emily started to apologize. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you, but you were having a breakdown. What else happened? Dorothy wiped her face with napkins and explained. You won't believe it. I was just informed that my husband will never have children. Can you imagine? He's infertile. And yet Philip left me because his mistress is pregnant with his child. Now I'm curious. Whose child is it really? Whose is this baby? And all these years, I blamed myself for not being able to have a child. My ex-husband constantly humiliated me because he thought I was barren. No wonder I had a breakdown. Emily thought seriously. But isn't it good that all of this came out now? You can go to your husband and threaten him with the fact that you know everything. Maybe he'll reconsider dealing with you through the court. If you want, I can provide you with legal representation in court, completely free of charge, although we'll probably still lose the case. I have one plan. We just need to find out everything. Dorothy was in immense shock. She looked at this young woman and didn't know what to do. She had trusted Jordan so much. He seemed so reliable and friendly to her. The woman thought, Lord, it turns out I don't understand people at all. First, my own husband deceived me, and now even the lawyer. And I, a fool, believe everyone. After some thought, Dorothy agreed. All right, let's try to do something together for my salvation. Thank you for risking your career to come and tell me everything. I'll terminate the contract with Jordan tomorrow and take back my money along with the document copies, even though I understand it's too late. After all, I've already told him everything. Let's not despair prematurely. As soon as I figure everything out, I'll call you right away, and you try to calm down a bit. The next day, Dorothy went to Jordan and terminated the contract. The man was puzzled. Dorothy, what happened? We have excellent chances to win this case. You've already paid me a retainer, and I won't be able to refund that money. Are you doubting my impeccable reputation? Dorothy simply replied dryly, I'm sorry, but I changed my mind. It's my right. I won't need a lawyer. Goodbye. Jordan wasn't upset at all. It was even better this way. He got the money, and he didn't have to do anything. Now he and Philip would definitely win this case. But when Emily, his best intern, handed in her resignation on the same day, he was completely bewildered. He tried to persuade her to stay. After all, she had great potential. She would make a competent lawyer. But she wouldn't agree, mentioning something about family circumstances and an urgent move. Cunning and experienced Jordan intuitively felt that something was happening. All these coincidences on the same day couldn't be a mere chance. But he didn't understand what exactly. But now Emily was free from obligations to her boss, and she decided to keep an eye on Margaret. And as it turned out, it was worth it. On the third day, she saw what she wanted. The sly girl was dating two men at the same time. And she had another lover, a young fitness trainer. They were passionately kissing right in his car, oblivious to everything around them. And Emily easily managed to take several successful photos. It took another week to gather the remaining documents for the real estate court case. And only after that did Emily call Dorothy. Good day. I'll be waiting for you tomorrow at the same cafe. We'll go to your husband's house. I mean, to your house. I have a plan. I'll tell you everything when we meet." When the women met, Dorothy asked anxiously, "Emily, maybe we shouldn't go to my ex-husband. Why do we need this? The court is in 3 days. We'll meet him there." But Emily objected. "That's the point. The court is very soon. And I understand perfectly well that Jordan has prepared well to leave us no chance of winning in court. I know what I'm talking about. I want to catch Philip off guard. I'm sure he's not alone there, but with his mistress. I'll scare him, and hopefully, he'll drop the lawsuit. This is our only chance." Dorothy shook her head. "I don't know. Philip is too obsessed with taking everything from me and probably won't stop. We might make things worse." The women drove to Dorothy's mansion. She tried to open the door with her key, but in vain. It didn't fit. The homeowner even started to cry. The creep changed the locks. "It means he decided that the house no longer belongs to me. But we bought it together." And then Margaret opened the door, wearing only Philip's shirt, her hair disheveled. She clearly expected someone else and even screamed in surprise, "Dorothy, I thought it was the pizza delivery guy." Dorothy felt so hurt. She felt humiliated and destroyed. She felt sick to her stomach, as if she had cheated on Philip with her best friend, not the other way around. She exclaimed, "So it's all true. Margaret, how could you? I did so much for you since childhood. Got you a job, taught you everything, trusted you with all my secrets. And you betrayed me like this." Philip himself came out of the noise, saw Dorothy, and frowned. "I don't understand. What are you doing here? We're not expecting any guests. And my beloved Margaret shouldn't get nervous right now. She's pregnant. So get out of here. We'll meet in court." Dorothy was shocked by such audacity and shouted, "Guests? And what about the fact that this is also my house? And here you are entertaining yourself with your mistress. What a scoundrel you are, Philip. I wasted so many years with you in vain. I loved you. How could you do this?" At this point, Emily intervened. She began to speak to Philip. "Hello. Now I'm Dorothy's lawyer, and I'll defend her interests in court. Her emotions are understandable. Not every day your best friend takes away your husband. Agree. Can we come in? I have an important conversation for you. And it's in your best interest that we discuss this right now, before the trial." Philip begrudgingly let the unexpected guests into the living room and smirked. "Well, what important news do you have for me? Jordan won't leave you any chance of winning this case. It's even funny that some young girl decided to compete with a professional." Emily asked quite peaceably, "Tell me, Philip, why are you divorcing Dorothy? Why go through all this legal hassle? Can't you just agree and split everything fairly? If you don't want to sell the house, you can pay Dorothy half of its value. You're not exactly poor, right?" Philip started to get irritated. What are these questions? What stupid suggestions are these? I love Margaret, and she's soon going to give birth to our baby. A son. My own son, you understand. And Dorothy couldn't do that in all these years. And you're asking why I'm getting a divorce. Where do you think I should live with my new family?" Margaret smirked. She wasn't ashamed at all of destroying someone else's family, of hurting her close friend. She had always been accustomed to solving all her problems through the bedroom. This scheme had never failed her. And as for Dorothy suffering, she couldn't care less. No one had ever pitied her in her childhood. So why should she? But then Dorothy couldn't take it anymore. She pulled out the test results from her purse and threw them in her ex-husband's face. "What are you talking about? You're going to have a baby. Yours. Your own. You're a fool. Read this, you idiot. You took the test yourself. You're infertile. Completely and irreversibly. You can't have children. So, the question arises, whose baby is your beloved Margaret carrying? What do you think?" Philip couldn't believe it. His hands were shaking. "You are lying. You must have faked these tests. Margaret couldn't betray me like this. Not for anything, Emily replied sharply. You can easily verify this. Call the clinic yourself or retake the tests. Unfortunately, it's the truth. Your mistress deceived you, and I even found out who your opponent is. Look at the photo. In my opinion, Margaret manipulated you cleverly, Philip, and spends quality time twice a week with another young man. So, how do you like this news? Do you think if I expose all this in court and invite the press, it'll make a good scandal? Is it worth your reputation in business? Philip was stunned. He shook the photos in front of Margaret's face and shouted, Is this true? Who are you pregnant by? Tell the truth. It's too late for lies now. The treacherous mistress didn't know what to do. She wanted to run away, but Philip grabbed onto her, waiting for an answer. She had to confess. Philip, I'm sorry. I'm not pregnant. I love you, really. If I hadn't lied about being pregnant, you would have never decided to leave your wife. And Bobby, it was just a fling. It meant nothing. We were so good together. Philip, please forgive me. Philip was furious. He pushed Margaret away and yelled like a madman, Get out of my house and out of my life. I never want to see you again. What a fool I've been. I destroyed my family because of you. I hate you. He sat down on a chair and clasped his head in his hands. All his dreams of having a child and a new family were shattered. He felt sick to his stomach, and he was deeply ashamed in front of Dorothy. So much so that he was afraid to lift his gaze to her. He had never felt like such an idiot before. In a hoarse voice, he said, I won't fight for the mansion. Let everything be done according to the law. And now I'd like to be alone. Leave, all of you, immediately. Emily was satisfied and led Dorothy away. She couldn't say a word. She was shaking. Suddenly, Emily suggested, Dorothy, why don't we go to my place? I'll introduce you to my brother. You can stay with us for a while until everything is sorted out. You said yourself that you're in a tight spot with money right now, so why waste your last pennies on a hotel? You won't inconvenience us at all. Dorothy was actually relieved by the offer. Thank you. I won't refuse. I don't want to be alone right now. I don't even want to live. I thought I had a strong family, a loving husband, and more children to come. I wanted to grow old with Philip, but it turns out I was living a lie. They lied to me shamelessly, day after day. Both my husband and my best friend, and I believed them. It's terrifying to realize. I'll go crazy soon. I think about it day and night. At least I'll get a little distraction at your place, and I need to find a job. Learn to live independently. I have no one else to rely on now. Emily lived in a small cozy apartment with her older brother Nick. They had managed to unpack Dorothy's things and prepare dinner by the time Nick finally returned from work. Seeing Dorothy, he smiled. Good evening, Emily. Do we have guests? Why didn't you tell me? I would have bought something delicious. I'm Nick. And you are? You must be my sister's colleague. Right. Dorothy felt shy. She found this pleasant man very attractive. Hello. I'm Dorothy. No, I'm not a colleague. Quite the opposite. I'm a client who lost her home. Emily offered me to stay with you for a while. You don't mind, do you? I feel awkward. I don't want to cause you any inconvenience. Nick waved his hands. Nonsense. I'm all for it. I love having guests, and I'd be happy to sketch your portrait. You have such an aristocratic profile and beautiful eyes. As they sat down for dinner, she asked with interest, So, you're an artist? What an interesting profession. Can I see your works? I adore painting. Nick looked embarrassed and replied, I'm just self-taught. It's more of a hobby. I attended art school throughout my childhood. My works participated in major competitions. I dreamt of going to art academy, but my parents were against it. They said it's not a serious profession for a man, just a whim. So, they insisted I go to study mechanical engineering. and now I work as an engineer. I hate my job, and it's not easy because of my leg problems. But for now, I endure it. My sister and I are saving up for treatment. Well, it's a long story. I don't like talking about it. I'll show you my works after dinner. Nick's paintings amazed Dorothy. They were so honest, heartfelt, showing his clear talent. He painted in the park on weekends, capturing landscapes and portraits of passers-by, earning quite well. Dorothy immediately felt a connection with Nick, and they opened up to each other. Nick decided to share his challenging life story. My parents are very good people. We come from an intellectual family. They hardly ever argued with each other, but were highly concerned about others' opinions. Our house was always impeccably tidy. Sometimes my father's colleagues would visit, and those evenings were like showcases. Everyone peacefully dined and drank. My parents praised my sister and me, and naturally, we had to live up to the ideal child model. Since birth, I've had hip problems. My mother said they tried to fix this defect when I was a baby, but they couldn't completely. As you see, this awkward gait has stayed with me for life. I think my parents were always slightly embarrassed to showcase me to guests because of this. They tried to focus attention on how well I studied, showing off my certificates. School wasn't easy either. I was teased as a robot and a cripple. So, I grew up quiet and withdrawn, not fond of people. I barely had any friends except for my sister. Drawing has always been and still is my favorite activity. When I draw, I forget all my problems. In art school, nobody paid attention to my gait. They only evaluated creativity. I asked my parents to let me pursue further education in this field. But no, what would people think? Their son, some kind of artist. That's not serious. But an engineer, yes, that's a real profession. So, here I am, working at this cursed factory. I hate my job. Dorothy was puzzled and kept asking, Nick, but you're already a grown man. Why do you still endure this unloved job? Why not pursue your creativity? It's obvious you have talent. Are you still afraid of your parents' judgment? The man pondered and visibly grew sad. You're right, Dorothy. But I see no way out. Painting doesn't bring in much money for survival, let alone enough for an expensive joint replacement surgery. I need an art education or at least connections because there are so many self-taught artists like me. And who knows about them? Without the surgery, I'll never be able to start a family. Do you know how tired I am of loneliness? How much I long to have a loving woman and children, not to be a burden to my sister. She worries about me so much, saving money too. And because of this disability, nobody looks at me. I've had relationships once, but they didn't last. I quickly realized my fiancé was just using me, endlessly demanding money. So, I even stopped trying to meet new people. It's all useless. I can't stand it when women pity me and look down on me. Dorothy exclaimed, Nick, why do you say such things? Personally, when I saw you, I didn't even notice your gait. On the contrary, I was so impressed by how cheerful and open you are, so sociable and genuine. You're mistaken to think all women are the same. No, we're all different. And you will surely find your love, I'm sure. You know what? Would you mind if we put your works on the internet? It's not difficult at all. Maybe the right people will notice you. You're not risking anything. You have nothing to lose. Can I accompany you to the park? I'm very curious to see how you create. Nick was so pleased with Dorothy's words, and he gladly agreed. Of course, let's go. I'd be delighted. I'll even paint your portrait. And I never thought about the internet, to be honest. However, you're right. I have nothing to lose. So let's try it. Let's see what comes out of it. You know, Dorothy, your husband is a complete idiot because he lost such a woman as you. I would give anything to have someone like you by my side. Dorothy found it surprising. Not long ago, she didn't know Emily or Nick at all, and today she had no one closer to her. It was amazing how cozy and peaceful she felt in their welcoming home. The three of them got along so well. It felt like they weren't just friends, but a real family. Philip often called Dorothy, but she persistently ignored his calls and eventually blocked him. After such betrayal, she didn't want to hear anything about her ex-husband and firmly resolved never to return to him. She was just waiting for the court hearing, hoping that Philip would come to his senses and she would receive money for half of her house and property. Dorothy already knew where to spend it. Most of all, she wanted to help Nick with the operation. Meanwhile, Philip was furious. He couldn't reach his ex-wife, and it irritated him terribly. It used to be the other way around. He often ignored her calls, and it turns out, it hurts so much when you're ignored. Where was Dorothy now? After all, he kicked her out of her own home. He didn't even leave her any money. Her parents had long passed away, and she had no friends except the traitor Margaret. Only now, when his mistress had deceived him so vilely, did Philip begin to understand a lot. Why did he destroy his family? For whom? For that idiot who deceived him. Was it worth it? Philip drank cognac and cursed himself. Idiot. What was I missing? Life with Dorothy seemed boring, lacked variety, but now it's very amusing. Problems at work, chaos at home, and nobody is here. No one wakes me up with a tender kiss in the morning, invites me to breakfast, whispers about love. Is this the life I dreamed of? Why did I hurt Dorothy like that? Yelled at her, kicked her out of the house, even wanted to take her property. No, I need to fix everything. I need to apologize. Maybe Dorothy will reconsider and come back. After all, she loved me so faithfully for so many years. I would give anything now for everything to be like it was before. On the day of the court hearing, Dorothy prepared especially carefully. Though she was very nervous, she looked stunning. To her surprise, everything went smoothly. She and Philip got divorced, and she received a very good amount of money for the house and property acquired during the marriage. Philip was waiting for her on the porch. He timidly touched Dorothy's hand. Wait, Dorothy. You look so beautiful today. Please forgive me if you can. I'm a fool for starting all this. I regret it so much, really. For the betrayals and for Margaret. I really want to make peace with you. Maybe you'll come back to me. We've lived together for so many years. I only now realize how much I love you. I promise I'll never betray you again. Dorothy could tell by her ex-husband's eyes that he wasn't lying, and she was grateful to him for his honesty. But she sighed and replied, "No, Philip, I won't come back. I loved you more than anything in the world. And most importantly, I trusted you, you know. I believed in you until the very end. And Margaret too. And you both deceived me so cruelly. And it wasn't just once. It lasted for over a year. Every day, you came home and lied to me. It's horrible, Philip. And I never understand how you could do that. It can't be like it was before. It hurts me so much to see you and remember everything. And I can't live in our house anymore, knowing that you slept with Margaret there. You ruined everything yourself, Philip. Alas, please, let's part ways amicably. Don't call me anymore and don't look for me. Maybe things will turn out for each of us. Goodbye." And that's how their family's story ended. Dorothy went to Emily's house, upset, and cried until evening, replaying every episode of her life with Philip in her head, as if turning the pages of a book one by one and tearing them out. Emily and her brother understood everything and didn't bother Dorothy, although Nick was deeply concerned. He had never met such sincere and devoted women before, and he couldn't bear to see her suffering. Nick quietly asked Emily, "Do you think Dorothy still loves her ex-husband so much? Do I have no chance at all? I feel so sorry for her, and I want to help her somehow." The girl sighed. "You see, Nick, people spend so many years together. You can't just forget it in a second. She just needs help getting through this pain. That's all. Time will help her, and soon everything will calm down. I don't know what to tell you, brother. Just be there for her, and time will tell. You know, I want to suggest something to Dorothy. What if we open our own law firm with her? She may not be a lawyer, but she's very knowledgeable and could be my assistant. I feel comfortable with Dorothy. I think we'd make a good team. And most importantly, she's trustworthy. I've come to realize that. Nick was delighted. I'd be thrilled. I could see Dorothy more often then. I think I've hopelessly fallen for her, and I don't know what to do about it. Dorothy cried for many hours straight, and by morning, she had made up her mind. She came to breakfast and handed Nick a bundle of money, saying, I want you to check into the hospital and schedule the surgery tomorrow. And I don't want to hear anything about feeling uncomfortable. Please, take this money. It didn't bring me happiness, so let it go toward a good cause. Thank you, guys, for everything. For your kind words. For your support. But I can't live off your expense forever. It's not right. Here, I've written down a few company addresses for myself. I'll go for interviews and look for a place to live. Nick and Emily couldn't believe it. They hugged Dorothy tightly. Thank you. You're just amazing. We'll repay everything as soon as Nick recovers. We also have savings. I think we'll have enough now. Hold on, Dorothy. Listen to our job offer. Emily explained her idea to Dorothy, giving her some insight, and the woman became interested. Maybe we should give it a try. You're a very smart girl. Let's give it a shot. At first, we may not have many clients, but the main thing is to just start. I agree. You know, guys, thanks to you, I'm starting some completely new and amazing life. And I'm going to build it the way I want. Nick had a successful surgery, and Dorothy was there for him all the time, supporting him as best she could. Together, they took their first steps, and they grew very close during this challenging time for him. There were tantrums, tears of pain, and tears of happiness when the first confident steps were taken. Dorothy didn't even notice how she fell in love with Nick. It happened so naturally. Love for Philip was like self-sacrifice. She always tried to please him, to make him happy, and he graciously accepted her feelings. With Nick, everything was completely different. Each was accepted as they were, with their strengths and weaknesses. There was no need to be ashamed of their flaws or fear of looking foolish or funny. After Nick fully recovered, Dorothy and Emily started their own business. Soon enough, they had their first clients. Nick also decided to completely change his life. He quit his hated job as an engineer and dedicated himself entirely to his art. Together, they decided to buy a house so Nick could have his own workshop where he could create his masterpieces. But that wasn't all. The paintings that Dorothy had posted online before Nick's surgery were a great success, and soon they caught the interest of a patron who offered the artist an exhibition. It was a success. Nick believed in himself and started creating. Dorothy and Nick had a passionate romance. They were so happy together, without any constraints or obligations. They didn't make any plans. They just loved each other. Meanwhile, things were simply terrible for Philip. He had to sell the garment factory, couldn't cope without Dorothy's help and support, owed his employees their salaries, and the business went bankrupt. Maintaining such a large mansion was now also impossible. He sold it, abandoned everything, and left far away to another city where nobody knew him, to escape from bad memories. But even there, he couldn't find peace. There was no rest in his soul. He desperately missed Dorothy, not Margaret. She appeared in his dreams. He would embrace her in his sleep and wake up all alone in a stranger's room. He had occasional flings, tried to find someone like Dorothy, but he couldn't. Only she could love him so unconditionally and forgive everything. Dorothy often admired Nick's artwork, proud of him. Sometimes, she would accompany him to the park on weekends. Among Nick's paintings, she often saw a portrait of a little skinny boy and asked one day, "Nick, who is this? You're drawing this kid from memory." Nick replied quietly, "This is Alex. I met him in the park a long time ago. He's from a troubled family. His mother drank and often mistreated him, so he ran away from home. We talked a lot. I always bought him tea and a bun, and sometimes gave him money. He's always on my mind. But when I got out of the hospital, I went straight to the park, and he wasn't there. And he hasn't been back since. Maybe he's mad at me, or something happened to him. I'm really worried about him, Dorothy exclaimed. Why didn't you tell me about him earlier? We need to find him and find out everything. Where does he live? Nick even dropped his brush. If only I knew. I, fool, didn't think to ask for his address. We just chatted. I was afraid to scare him off with such questions. Where can I look for him? Excitedly, Dorothy replied. Let's take his portrait that you drew and go to the park, asking passersby if anyone knows this boy. He must live nearby since he came here every day, and that's what they did. They covered the entire area, and they were lucky. One woman remembered the boy and began to tell them, yeah, that's Alex. He often came here. He lives not far from here, in the old house with the green roof. You'll find it right away. His mother doesn't look after him at all. She just drinks alcohol all the time and brings different men home. I feel so sorry for the boy, but I haven't seen him in a long time. Dorothy and Nick went to the address the woman gave them. Indeed, they found the house right away, and its condition was appalling. The windows were dirty and unwashed. The door was barely hanging on its hinges. They knocked and shouted for a long time, but no one responded. They were about to give up when suddenly a neighbor came out. It was she who told them that Alex's mother had been taken to a psychiatric hospital, and apparently, she had even been deprived of parental rights. Alex himself was placed in an orphanage. Nick muttered, "Poor Alex. I have to help him. I can imagine what it's like for him there. Let's take him in, Dorothy. You'll see him and instantly fall in love. He's quiet, calm, and clever. I can't leave him in trouble. You understand?" Dorothy nodded. "I agree. I've always dreamed of children, but apparently, it's not meant for me to have my own. But I'll become a mother. I'll give all my warmth and affection to this unfortunate child. Let's go to an orphanage and find out everything." They spent a long time persuading an orphanage director to bring the boy, explaining that they came with serious intentions, that they were about to get married soon and would take the child with them, that they had both work and housing. Finally, the director agreed. She could see that they were good people, and the child really needed a family. The child walked gloomily behind the caregiver, not even raising his head, but when he saw Nick, he burst into tears and immediately rushed into his arms. "Nick, did you come for me? I've been waiting for you. I feel bad here, and my mom is sick. Please take me away from here." "And who is this lady? I haven't seen her before. Is she your wife?" Dorothy smiled, stroked the boy's head, and spoke softly. "My name is Dorothy, and I would love to be your second mom if you let me. Of course, I've always dreamed of having such a wonderful son like you. Would you like to live with us, as a family? We'll love you and never let anyone hurt you." Alex wiped his eyes and nodded. "I agree. I promise I'll listen and help you. I can already do everything myself. Just take me away." 3 months later, Alex was adopted, and he began to live with Nick and Dorothy. Amazingly, all three of them quickly got along well with each other, each enjoying their happiness. The boy found loving and responsible parents, and they found a son. Now, they happily went to the park together or watched comedies, while Nick taught Alex how to draw. A year later, something incredible happened. There's no other way to describe it. Dorothy became pregnant, and Nick literally radiated with joy. Alex quickly told everyone that he would soon have a younger sister. He really thought about his birth mother, who had caused him so much pain. No, he didn't hold a grudge against her. On the contrary, he pitied her. His irresponsible mother never left the psychiatric hospital. Sometimes, for Alex's sake, Dorothy and her son brought food to her in the hospital. And during one of these visits, Dorothy saw Margaret being escorted by orderlies down the hallway. She was unrecognizable. Her hair was unkempt and partly cut, and her gaze was completely deranged. She was wearing a straitjacket. It was a sight not for the faint-hearted. Margaret didn't recognize her. She was just muttering insults. Dorothy couldn't bait and asked the doctor for all the details. He explained, "She's fairly new here. Her boyfriend left her for another woman, and then she ambushed the mistress and tried to kill her with a knife, causing serious injuries. They wanted to arrest her, but then she was deemed completely insane. As you can see, in what condition she's in." Dorothy was shocked and asked, "And what about her? Will she never recover?" The doctor shook his head. "Unlikely. I can tell you that for sure. The case is quite severe. She's aggressive and obsessed with the idea of murder." Dorothy felt no pity for Margaret. She just thought about how wisely life is arranged, everyone getting what they deserve. They returned home with their son, where Nick was waiting for them, having even prepared spaghetti with cheese. "You're back. I missed you. Let's sit down. I've prepared something tasty. How was your visit to Mom, son?" The boy suddenly hugged Dorothy, looked her in the eyes, and said seriously, "Can you be my real mom now? Forever. And we won't go to that other mom anymore. I don't want to. Okay. I love you both so much." Dorothy hugged the boy tightly and whispered, tears of happiness streaming down her happy face, "You're our little boy. Only ours. And your dad and I love you very much." She felt so light and good in her soul because she now had a real, strong family, loving husband Nick, son Alex, and soon there would be a daughter too. Isn't that happiness? She no longer regretted divorcing Philip. Their marriage was a mistake from the start. They just both realized it too late. The woman thanked fate for meeting Emily, as it was from there that her new, completely different, real life began.